In today's video, we're going to talk about money and specifically how to heal your relationship with money. I know this is not normally in the wheelhouse of things that I talk about on here. Primarily, I talk about creativity and pursuing your inner artist and bringing more joy into your life. But I realized that I would be remiss if I did not talk about this very practical subject of money, because I feel like there is a tension between your ability to be creative and how financially secure you feel. If I'm being honest, I didn't really fully pursue my creative instincts. Like, I didn't go after pitching to agents. I didn't like write a book proposal. I didn't do any of this. I didn't really take my writing seriously until after I had cleaned up and managed my financial life. I actually don't think that that's a coincidence. I feel like there was such a part of me that was in fear mode when I didn't have my money house in order, that I really wasn't taking steps to spread my wings. I really wasn't trying to be this, juicy creative self, because I knew like my house was messy and I didn't have that in order. But I'm telling you, once I got it cleaned up, once I got that stuff squared away, that's when I really started to have the courage to actually start putting myself out there. Because if we're going to talk about creativity, we also have to talk about money. If you can't afford to live your life, if you are worried that you're going to go broke, if you feel like you are dying under a mountain of debt or student loans, you're not going to be out here making art. Okay, that's where the archetype of the starving artist comes in, right? So in my last video, I talked about ways that we need to care for ourselves in order to then have a steady foundation to make our art. And those were sort of self-care, healing things, right? That was like getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise. Well, I want to zoom out. Okay. And I do want to talk about money because I do feel like this is first off, I'm like passionate about it. I actually feel like this could be one of my content pillars, and I'm just going to make content about it. And if you guys are into it, awesome. If you're also like, yo, I'm not ready for that, then, you could just watch it at a point in time when you are ready. I don't expect this video to be like a top performing, because nobody wants to talk about money. Nobody wants to hear about it. But I feel a responsibility, and I also feel an excitement to talk about money, because my whole goal with this channel is to empower, right? And that means spreading education, and that means spreading awareness. And I also feel like, okay, here's how I really feel about money. I was so bad at it for so long. And I always had this story like, I'm bad at math, I'm bad at numbers, okay? And then I put in the time to become good at it, okay? Why do you guys think that I went to Columbia Business School to study finance? Because I knew that was my biggest weakness. I was like, I don't know how to look at a spreadsheet. I don't understand numbers. Like, people are talking about P&L and I like literally don't understand what they're saying. Okay. So I took my ass and I educated myself. Now, mind you, when I was at Columbia, I didn't learn about personal finance. They don't actually, I mean, maybe I could have taken these classes, but I just didn't think to do it. They don't sit you down and talk about, okay, this is how you're going to save money. This is how you're going to look at your stock portfolio. They don't teach you about that personal finance end of things. So I left business school like literally not even knowing any of it. Okay. But what B school gave me was the confidence, because I said to myself, you know what, Mandy, like you already did the impossible. First off, you were like a woman in this school that's known for finance. And at the time, I think it was only like 30 to 35% women enrolled. I'm sure it's like more even now, but at the time it was like there were no women taking these courses. Okay. And number two, I was like, you studied corporate finance. You know how to do like the most complicated financial projections now. You understand how to do like net present value of a company. You know how to evaluate a company. You understand like how companies are run and like what a board of directors, like you understand all this. So like if you could get that, then how do you not know how to like pay off your student loans. Do you know what I'm saying? So then I had the confidence to be like, well, it's silly that I've gone through all this training and yet I don't know a thing about my own finances, right? And there was a lot of shame and a lot of like, I just don't want to think about it. I don't want to look at it. So I'm going to tell you a little story about my student loans, and hopefully that will illustrate like either that's something that you can relate directly to, or there's something else in your life that could be a stand-in for that. Okay. And I'll be totally transparent with you guys, because this is how, like, if I was your big sister, this is literally how I would talk to you and how I'd be like, these are the things that you should really do. Okay. And I want to also do this because I feel like I know my audience here on YouTube skews a little bit younger, right? Everybody in the comments is always like big sis or like auntie. Someone even called me grandma. I was like, okay, that's too much. But I feel like an opportunity and I feel like a responsibility to be like, oh my gosh, like you know, if there is this kind of big sister energy, then I want to be the one to be like, guys, okay, also let's be creative, but also like clean up your finances, because that will set you up. Okay, so I'm going to just talk to you like I am your big sis. Okay, so the year was 2018. I had been out of B school for many years at that point, okay? And I had, when I graduated, I had, I think, $140,000 of student loans, because it's everything. It's the education, but it's also like you take out loans to like just live your life when you're in grad school. Right? So, and like things like, how did I pay rent during grad school? I wasn't making any money, right? So all of that became a student loan. All right. The minute you graduate, it's like it becomes due. So I had been for years paying the bare minimum. It's so scary to even admit this, because I don't think I really understood what it all meant. And I was like, well, I'll just pay the minimum. I'll just like pay the minimum. The minimum at the time was like $700 a month. Still like that's like a chunk of change. But the bill would come, I would pay it, and I'd like literally like blocked it out of my mind. I was like, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to think about it. Okay, fast forward to 2018. I was like, you know what? I really feel like I'm not doing something right. Like, I feel like this is just something I've shoved into the closet. I haven't looked at it. I haven't taken care of it. I don't even know when I'm going to be done paying these loans. Like, I don't know what that looks like. Okay. So, and I knew I could do better. Like, I knew that what I was doing was wrong. I didn't know the path. So what did I do? I just started, like anyone else would do, I just started Googling it. Okay. So I started Googling it. I was like, how to pay off student loan, how to organize student loan, and like just started to educate myself on like, what does it even mean? What is principal versus interest? Like, how does this work? What's happening? So this is what I hope that if you're still in that phase where you're like, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to look at it, I hope that maybe watching this video could accelerate you to where I was like, I think I need to really look at this. I think I need to actually pay attention to what's happening. Okay. So the big breakthrough for me was I went online and I found these student loan interest calculators, right? And basically what it would do is you would put in how much you owe, you would put in how much money you're paying per month, and then it would show you, okay, based on this, you're going to pay off the loan in X number of years. Okay. And for me, I put in my information and it was like, you're going to pay this off. It was literally some horrible number. It was like, you're going to pay this off in 14 years. And I was like, what? I have to keep paying this much for another 14 years. I was like, no. And so I started researching, like, how do people do this? Like, and started learning about, okay, so I had 2 loans and one was a smaller amount. That one was like $8,000 and the other at the time was like $100,000. Okay. So they were like, well, you can do a method where you just aggressively pay down one and then attack the other one. So that's what I started doing. I was like, okay, so I'm understanding now kind of what this strategy should be. So I focused my energy on paying down the smaller loan. And then here's the big difference is I actually created a Google Sheet where I started to catalog everything. Okay. So my Google Sheet had a couple different tabs, and one tab was like the calculator. So I could see, okay, and it's the great thing about a calculator is you can just put in information and then it'll tell you like, hey, based on what you've put in, this is how much longer you have. And so you can start to see patterns, right? You can be like, okay, so if I do a little bit more each month, then how does that decrease the amount of time? Okay. The other thing that was like a killer for me, the thing that was like actually made me wake up a little bit, was seeing how much interest I was paying over time. So interest basically means you're paying the bank money that doesn't hit the actual amount that you owe. It's just like money you're paying to the bank for having that loan. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so this was one of the spreadsheets that I had, and this basically showed me how much money I was paying every month, how much of that was going to principal, meaning the actual amount I owed, and then how much was interest. Okay, so we're going to look at this first line item here, which was August of 2018. This is when I woke up, okay? August of 2018, I was paying $1,400 a month. $1,000 of that was going to principal. $400 was going to interest. And what I could see is that approximately 28.56% of my money was going to just interest. And I gotta tell you, it kind of pissed me off. I was like, wait a minute. Why am I paying? I didn't know much. Okay, but I knew that paying 30% interest was probably cray-cray. I was like, that seems excessive. That seems like a lot of money. And in my mind, I could see that it was like, okay, so I'm handing over $1,400. $1,000 is going to the loan itself. And then I'm just giving the bank $400? Like, F that. I literally got angry. And I think this is, gosh, guys, if anything, please just like get to a point where you get angry, because that's when change actually happens. Again, I was still a newbie. I still don't think I'm like the absolute expert on this, but I can tell you the thought of handing someone $400 for the pleasure of managing my loan, I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, I don't care what changes I have to make or who I have to beg, borrow, steal from, or what I have to stop spending money on. But like, hell no, I'm not giving you $400 so that you could just like take the money from me and I never see it again, and it's not even going towards the payment. Like, what? Okay, that's when I realized this is highway robbery, okay? And that is when I started upping the amount that I was paying, okay? Because at the time, I didn't have like an extravagant lifestyle. I mean, you guys know me. I'm just like, I'm kind of a homebody. Sometimes I travel, but for the most part, I mean, I'm also like, look at what I wear. I'm not a shopper. I'm not buying stuff, okay? I have like, what do I value? I value books. I value a nice laptop. I value a cute sweater, but it's like nothing. I'm not like wearing Prada, okay? So I started to feel the injustice of this, and I was like, oh, hell no. And the fact that I had a spreadsheet where I could plug in and be like, okay, well, what if I paid $1,500, or what if I paid $1,800? What if I paid $2,000? Then what happens? Okay. So you could see in the spreadsheet, September of 2018, I upped that amount to $2,141. And then of that, $1,700 went to principal, $400, kill me, still went to interest. However, the interest percentage was going down. So instead of paying 28%, I was paying 18%. I mean, it still killed me. I still was like, this is such BS. But I also, mind you, I had been paying almost 30% interest for years. For years. I just finally decided, after 15 minutes of Googling, learned some strategies, realized I don't want to throw my money away. Let's get on this, okay? I think if I were to really reflect on it too, I think there was a part of me that knew that getting through this was going to be a key to my creative freedom. Because I think financial freedom and creative freedom sit really close to each other. Okay. Sometimes we put too much pressure on our creativity to provide the financials, and that's where things get a little wonky. Okay. But I'm telling you that my creative freedom was unleashed once I had my financial freedom locked down. Okay. Obviously, I'm not there. I'm not like financially free yet. I'm still in the process. Okay. But at least I can share what, 6 years ago, smart Mandy started to realize, so that hopefully it could like jar something in you and get you to take action as well. Okay, I literally have to put my hair up. I'm getting too excited. I'm telling you guys, I know this is not a side that you've seen before, but I'm very passionate about this because I really feel like especially if you're a woman or identify as a woman, like this is part of our emancipation. This is part of our freedom. This is part of stepping into our power, is also being in a powerful relationship with money. Okay. And that probably is the biggest thing that I took away from my grad program, was just the confidence of being like, hell yeah, I don't need to be a dum-dum. Like, I can educate myself. Okay. So let's keep going. Look, this spreadsheet too, I'm going to be so real with you. This spreadsheet has 45 lines. That's 45 months. Okay. So from the time that I woke up in 2018, it took 3+ years, 45 months, okay, of me diligently every single month taking every extra dollar that I had and putting it towards this loan. That is how badly I wanted freedom, okay? I'm going to show you guys too, around 2020, you can see this is when I was working okay, so 2020 was when I really, guys, because with the pandemic, I was like, this life is not for me, okay? This life of having, at the time, very young kids, being on Zoom calls, kids were not going to school because of the pandemic, right? Having to be on these endless Zoom calls with kids in the background. Then the kids did eventually go back to school, but then anytime there was an issue, they were like randomly coming home. I mean, it was just chaos, okay? That was at the point in 2020 when I was like, this life is not for me. It was like multiple things. It was like the friction and the pain of just like having to manage all of this while going through a global pandemic, right? But I think on a deeper level, it was also knowing that I wanted to do more. I wanted to try running my own business. I wanted to create content. I wanted to do education. And I didn't even know what I wanted, but I knew that it was more. Okay. So 2020, if you look at this spreadsheet, what happened was I got impatient, and I got to a point where I was like, okay, F this. This is not even moving fast enough for me. At that point, I've been doing it consistently for 2 years. I was like, no, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have this like weight on my neck. Like, I just want this to be over. What can I do? At this point, I still had $40,000 of loans. And yeah, I mean, that's like amazing because that's way less than the 90 whatever that I started with, but it felt less impossible, but it still felt impossible. So again, like an animal backed into a corner, I was like, this life is not for me. I am not gonna, just go work for someone else forever. That just wasn't my path, okay? And B, I was like, I just want to do something more. And the way to freedom is to move through this as fast as I can. So you could see in July 2020 is when I got really, you know what? I guess, no, that was like peak pandemic. That was when I got really serious. And I did two things. I started to take on 2 additional side hustles in addition to my full-time job. Okay. One of those side hustles was I was a part-time career coach. So at one point I was doing my full-time job as an account manager, like managing clients, doing all this stuff, running around. And I was teaching 2 courses at the same time. I had 50 plus students. And I was also taking on freelance, like here and there, resume work, help with cover letters, help with, oh, I'm going on an interview. Okay, at that time, I was just in a go, go, go mode. And I was like, I'll say yes to everything because I'm just trying to acquire cash. Okay, so every time, and like, it wasn't a lot of money, but between the coaching job and between my freelance stuff, my freelance stuff, if I did a resume, I might make $300, right? If I did an interview prep, I could make $150. So I just was like taking the money wherever I could get it, right? And I was locked in because I was like, I need to get out of this trap. And so I would pool that money. So let's say through the like part-time career coaching, I could make, I don't know, it was very fluctuated a lot, but I could make maybe $1,500 a month, right? Pre-tax. Then I could make a couple hundred from the rest. So I was pooling all that plus all the money that I was making from my full-time job. I was pooling that money. So you could see there were some months where I just lost my mind. I went crazy. There's one month where I paid $3,964. I literally felt like I was like a stripper, and I was just like taking all my $1 bills and being like to the government, like, let me just pay off this fucking loan already, right? So basically that's when I lost my mind. That's when I went absolutely crazy. There was like 3 months where I literally like paid almost $4,000 because I was like, let me get out of the 40s. Like, let me get out of the 40s. Let me get into the 30s. Because I knew like once I got into the under 20,000 range, that was like, at that point, here's the beautiful thing. I'm going to show this on the screen. Here's the beautiful thing is like at that point, the interest rate went down to less than 3%. When I tell you that was like the best feeling, guys, to go from paying interest of 30% to paying less than 3% interest, I was like, yes, hell yeah, this is where the juice is at, okay? So at that point, I knew, okay, if I get under 20,000, I don't even care. Because at that point, under 20,000, the interest rate is like 2.2%. I was like, I don't care. At that point, I was paying $50 in interest. $72 in, I don't care. Take my money, right? So I just knew I had to get to that point, and I got a little batshit crazy, but then I did it. All right. The lesson of this story is this was at one point such a big weight on me. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what I was doing. I just paid the minimum and looked away and hoped for the best. Okay. The lesson here is you have to get intimate with your numbers. You have to really understand what is the principal? What is the interest? What am I really signing up for here? If I just keep going the way I'm going, it's going to be another 10, 15 years before I pay off this loan. Like, no, okay? So you have to get very well acquainted with what's going on with your numbers. And then honestly, you have to get a little pissed off. You have to get a little bit like, no. I'm not giving away my hard-earned money. Okay. The second thing that I want to talk about in this video, it's already getting kind of long, but I don't care. Okay. The second thing that I want to talk about is your investment strategy, because you need one. Okay. You need one. And I know you've heard this because I feel like financial savvy, financial mastery is kind of becoming like popular, which is great. Okay. I don't love it when people try to sell you things. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I'm just going to tell you the knowledge of what I know. Okay. So the other thing, what I started realizing is it all happened at this point. I went to the library and I started checking out books on investments. Okay. Because another thing happened. I really felt like, gosh, I went and got all this financial education and yet I'm a dum-dum. Like I don't have, because I'd worked in startups and because I'd worked for myself, because I'd left corporate, right? I didn't have a 401k. I didn't have a nest egg. I didn't have like a lot of people I knew who went and worked in big tech, right? I didn't have like RSUs. I didn't have like, Facebook just gave me 10,000 shares. Like I didn't have any of that. So I didn't have savings. I had a sad little checking account and that was it. Okay. And so I was like, okay, if I start now, it's not going to be amazing, but at least I could start saving something. Okay. So I went to the library. I checked out a couple of books on investing. There's a really good book that I read. It's called Invested by Danielle Town. I listened to that as an audiobook when I was like decluttering and like doing the dishes and stuff. And I feel like she just broke that down in a way that made so much sense to my brain. She basically, her whole message, you guys should read this book. I got it for free from the library. But her whole message was like, if you know how to shop, then you know how to pick a stock. Okay, so essentially she was like, listen, if you, let's say you go to a discount store, like you go to a TJ Maxx and you find like a Prada bag, and the Prada bag is only $90, but you know that the Prada bag is worth like $600. Are you going to buy that bag, right? And so she uses these analogies that just like made sense in my like silly little brain, where I was like, oh yeah, like I think I could be good at picking stocks because I understand that, like I understand the value of brands. I used to work in fashion. Like I understand a brand. I understand how a brand like Amazon or a brand like, Google would grow in value over time. I could see how, the social trends of our time would mean that this brand is probably going to only get more valuable. So reading that book really helped me understand the power of like brands and how to use that when picking stocks. And then the other thing is I read a book where it was like this idea of like ETFs, right? And so an ETF is essentially, it's basically just a collection of stocks under a specific category. But because it has like 10 plus different stocks, you don't have the pressure of like just picking like I just want to buy Microsoft or I just want to buy Meta, right? I would never buy Meta, fuck that. So it's essentially an index fund. And when you click on like a very popular index fund, for example, is like VGT. It's like a Vanguard stock of technology stocks. And you can click on it and you can see, okay, it'll show you the top 10 stocks that are within this index fund. Okay. So it'll show you that it's like Microsoft, Google, whatever. It like breaks it down. So it's also a pretty like low risk way to start to get into it because you don't have to sit there and pretend to be some like stockbroker. You could just know like, okay, I'm going to invest in technology. I'm going to invest in hospitality. I'm going to invest in retail and kind of just like pick that way. That's how I started. Was I literally went and I spent $100 on one of these like index fund stocks. So the way I do it now is I have two accounts, okay? So I have my stock market account, right? And then I have my more long-term. Because I'm a small business owner, I have something that's called a SEP IRA. When I Googled it, again, Google's your friend. When I Googled it, that was the closest thing that you could have to a 401k. And I was like, I want that, right? So I set up my SEP IRA. I set up my stock portfolio. And every month, I have $600 automatically deducted and dropped into those two accounts. Okay. I've been doing that for over 5 years now. And again, this is a very aggressive strategy. Okay. But I'm an aggressive person. So it just made sense for me. You don't have to do 600. You could do 300. You could do 200. It doesn't even matter. Just start. Okay. Just have the confidence. So a lot of people think that, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to just hire someone to do it. Okay, I'm just going to pay someone to manage it, pay someone to pick stuff for me. You don't have to do that. Start small. Like I told you, that first year, I literally would like buy one stock, like play with like $100, $200, and then just like keep checking it and keep watching it. Nowadays, it's once a month. I go in, the money drops in, I'm like, okay, so I have, let's say, and sometimes I forget. So then I will log in and it'll be like, oh, you have $600 to like, pick your stocks. I'll just go in. I'll like look at the watch list. I'll look at like, oh, okay, what stocks do I feel like are a good value right now? I also will actively clean out stocks that are not performing well. I will like release, right? And I just go in and I say, okay, I'll buy 3 of these, buy 2 of those, close it out. That's it. The whole thing now takes me about 10 minutes. And this is such a big topic, you guys. I just want to plant the seed here that this is something that I think would be highly beneficial to you. And the one thing I'll say is that there is like a snowball effect where like once you start investing, and I don't have like a ton of money in this, right? But $600 every month over the past 5 years, you do the math, right? Plus it's whatever gains you've gotten from the stock market. Once you start doing this, you build confidence. You build confidence to be like, oh, like I know how to do this. It's not complicated, right? And what you'll start to notice is people around you also start investing. So then my husband was like, oh no, I mean, I have like some passive things, but then he saw me doing it. So then he was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, like actually, yeah. Then like my neighbor, we had a conversation. He was like, oh, like you've been doing this, like tell me what you know. So we had this whole conversation. Now he's actively investing, right? Then my best friend, she was like, oh, like, what are you doing? And so I was like, girl, you gotta like start this process, start educating yourself, like start putting some money in, so like, now because of one action, because I was like, I don't want to be a dum-dum anymore and I want to educate myself and I want to start having a portfolio so that when I retire or when my kid needs to go to college, I have like a nest egg. I have things that I can pull out and use, right? And so like now that I've started doing it, it's like my husband's doing it, my neighbor's doing it, my best friend's doing it. It's like everybody wants to do this stuff, but it sometimes takes one person in the community to be like, yo, you should do this. You should try this. Okay. So again, right now I do $600 a month and that's what I wish I could do more. And like, honestly, that's why I'm hustling. Cause I'm like, let me get more so I can invest more. But in the early days, it was like 200 a month, 300 a month. Sometimes it was like $100 a month, but it didn't matter because I liked being able to see like, okay, I bought it at this price and now it's even more expensive. Like the kind of thrifty buyer in me was like, ooh, I like that. It's like free money, Anyway, I hope this video makes sense. I know it's off topic from our normal scheduled programming, but that is also, I think, how I want to grow as a creator, is to share many different aspects of my perspective, not just the creative stuff. Obviously, I love the creative stuff, the artistry, but also the business side. And this is part of it, right? The financial stuff, the how to make more money stuff. So if any part of this you really liked, please let me know. If any part of this you were like, I didn't understand what you're talking about, let me know. If there's any part where you're like, that really piqued my interest and I want to know more, I want to deep dive on that subject, let me know. Okay, I love you guys. I will talk to you soon. Take charge of your finances, get your financial house in order so that you can be more playful and more creative. Okay, I will see you soon. And as always, I will keep making videos for you. Okay, love you guys. Bye.